Okay, good evening, everybody.
Kavod Harav, how are you?
Thank God, Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so it looks like we're doing bet. It says there like this. Yeah, we should read the tour first because Sinan Peg Kama de Shabbat. Let's see the tour. Yeah, so it says in the tour, because Sinan Peg Kama de Shabbat. It says over there in the first parak of Shabbat, Leman de Amar Tfilat Arbit Reshut. According to the one who says that the evening prayer, Arbit, is Reshut, is only optional. Given the Shara Hemyane, Lama Techinande. So it says that once he opens up his belt, you don't obligate him anymore to go and pray. Perush Deachar Sheitir Ezoro, right? And Matrichin Oto Lachazov Lachagor. So again, right, as we said, he explains, after he opens up his belt, we don't require him now to go and put the belt back on. According to that opinion, they should pray. Right? So Gemara asks, okay, so let him pray without a belt. So the verse says, right, that you should prepare to meet your maker. So what does that mean? That a person should be dressed properly. And he writes, Mikan, from here you learn, that a person has to wear a belt at the time of the prayers. Even if he has already some kind of a belt that his heart doesn't see the genitals, the arva, nevertheless, he should also cover his head. So this is part of the religious garb that a person has to wear when he's praying to God. The Katav Rambam says, the Rambam Zal lo yamod betfilah be'apundato. So he says a person shouldn't stand in prayer with his belt, but lo berosho, right? Migule, right? So apundato means it's like a money belt, they put money in there. It's like a purse, but it goes around your waist. And also not with your hair uncovered. And also you shouldn't have your feet uncovered. So what does that mean? If you live in a place where people go, to meet the president, they put on shoes. So here also you should put on shoes. That's why in the Western countries, right? This is the end of the whole chapter, by the way. In the Western countries, since the way of going, to people who are prominent, president and this and that, is to put on shoes. So therefore, also now in our days, in a Western country like America, or even in Israel today, same thing. You should wear shoes, when you pray Amidah. For Kriyat Shema, it's not necessary. But for Amidah, it's necessary to wear shoes. In our society, in our culture. But in the old days, right, when there was Bet HaMikdash, and there are also some Arab countries where, the people, when they go into a place of prayer, they take off their shoes. Just the opposite, right? So if you live in a country like that, so then you got to take off your shoes before you pray. Because the truth is that in the Mikdash, in the temple, you weren't allowed to go in there with shoes. You had to take off your shoes. So, it depends on the culture that you live in, right? As we said. That's the end of the tour. Okay, so we'll go to Bet Yosef. So says Bet Yosef, V'gasinan per kama de Shabbat. It brings this the tour, language of tour. So he says, Ken katav shamaran. That's what it says in the Ran. V'chen katvu agaot maimoniot. Also agaot maimoniot. Perek Hey, milchot tefillah. Aval atosfot, but he says tosfot. Ve'arosh, and the Rosh katu. They wrote sham over there. Miki shara hem yaneh lo metarchinan le. Right, that when he opens up his belt, as we said, we don't anymore require him to close his belt for prayers, for the night prayers. Mikan nireh shetzarich le'zor chalatzav. So it seems from here, like you have to put on your belt when you're praying. Keshemitpalel, when you're praying Amidah, v'machazor vitri katav she'en tzarich. So here he says you don't need to. Why? Shetzarich le'zor chalatzav. So he says, because that you have to gird your loins. That's only because of the heart seeing the erva. Ve'anan itlan avnet u'mechnesaim b'lahem lo haya lahem mechnesaim. Right. So he brings a good point right over here, that nowadays we dress differently than they used to in the old days. Right. Look at the pictures of the old days. Right. They used to wear like these cloaks, these robes. That's how they walked around, these people. Today, we wear pants and shirts. The men I'm talking about. So what does that mean? That automatically, right, somebody who wears pants and also underwear, he already has two belts on him, One is the underwear, and the other one is the pants itself. Especially also if he has a belt also on the pants, so now he's got three belts that are going on there. Right, so that's already enough, and that's how we paskin, by the way. That once you have, your pants and your underwear, and your belt on your pants, that's enough already. No, you don't need more than that. But in those days, there was a different thing there. They used to wear robes, So because of that, they had to separate between the top and the bottom of the body. So they had to put something there, to like some kind of a belt there. That's the whole thing. Okay. So he goes on. Katav says the Ran, Miu Davka Linyan Tfilat Dainu Shmona Esrei, but he says when it comes to Shmona Esrei, the Amidah, that's only for that we're talking about. Aval shar brachot, right? But when it comes to other blessings, we don't require all this stuff. Right? Dayan belo chagora, you don't have to have a belt on. Deha chadarin bevlaeh. So it's because he says people, the rabbis of Iraq, havu sharu hem yanayu, they used to open up their belts. They used to bless, hamotzi u'berkat hamazon, hamotzi berkat hamazon. Ve'agaot maimoniot katu. Says this rabbi, Perek Hey, milchot tefillah, laws of tefillah, b'shem samak, name of the samak, deha de'aminan de'asur litpalel belo hagora, that which we say that you're not allowed to pray without a belt, hanemilet tefillah, that's talking about Amidah. Kegon Shmona Esrei, right? Aval, le'inyan Kriyat Shema, when one comes to Kriyat Shema, as we said, right? We're not so stringent about that. V'shar brachot en lachush, right? So therefore, the rest of the blessings we're not so concerned. B'chagora, to have a belt on. Rak shelo yeh libo oro et ervato. But we don't want that his heart should see the erva. Sheheh lo michnasaim. So what does that mean? You should have some pants on, as we said. Shabbat, like it implies in the first parak of Shabbat. So he says in those days they would take off their belt b'shat seudah, when they ate, right? When they ate, they would loosen the belt, right? Why is that? Because if your belt is tight when you're eating, right, you get stomach aches. Not very good for your stomach, right? So that's why we loosen the belt at the time of the seudah. Okay, good. Even though they do hamotzi, they do birkat hamazon, doesn't matter. They're allowed to pray that way. Right? But it says when it comes to your heart seeing the arva, it's forbidden also with other blessings. Right? Like Rashi, he said that when it comes to blessings, it's allowed. So we see there's two opinions over here, right? Some say for blessings you need a belt, and some say you don't need a belt. So we'll see what's the halakha. Katav Rabbeinu Yerucham says over there, Sheyesh Misha Katav. There is one that says Shemir Sheragil Lachagor Kol Hayom. So he says the person who has a belt on all day. Im hitir chagorato kodem tefillah. If he opened up his belt before the prayers, tzarich lachazor chagor. He has to put it back on because it's an obligation or whatever. Aval misha olech kol hayom belo chagora. But a person who says who goes without a belt all day, and tzarich lachagor b'tefillah. That's the way he says, right? We see that there's different opinions about this. What how the proper way is to do. So we'll see what the halakha is, right? The Shulchan Aruch, bottom line. Good. Okay, so let's go to Shulchan Aruch. It says, "Tzarich le'ezor b'shat tefillah." Right. So, as we said, the time of prayers, you need to put on a belt, right? As we said, afilu yesh lo avnet she'en libo ro'eh ha'erba. Even if he has already, some kind of a right, like a regular belt that his heart doesn't see the erva, mishum hikon, right, because of preparation. Aval shabrachot, but it says when it comes to other blessings, mutar levarech v'lo chagora. You're allowed to bless without a belt. Me'achar sheyesh lo michnesaim, since he has pants. Okay, good. So then he says in the Ramah, right, v'en libo ro'et arba, because he has pants. His heart doesn't see the erva, right? So what's the bottom line, right? Shulchan Aruch paskins like this, that even if you're wearing pants, okay, you should still put on a belt. So that's why, right, if you're a good boy or a good girl, whatever, right, make sure you have your belt on when you pray. Like women, they have like the belt on top of their dress, right? They should have a belt on when they do the Amidah. So what do we require? As we said, right, so far, we said yesterday we talked about your chest has to be covered, number one. Number two, you should be wearing a belt. Number three, right, we said your hair should be covered when you do Amidah, right? You shouldn't pray the Amidah without a hair covering. And by the way, if you go to the girl schools, right, the Bet Yaakov, the Ashkenazi schools over there, you'll see that they do pray without covering their hair. The girls, right, the younger girls, they do pray. So the truth is, the custom nowadays especially in the Ashkenazi world, is that they don't cover their hair when they pray the Amidah. So what can I tell you? It's become like a customary by ladies. They don't cover their hair when they do Amidah. But the proper thing to do, if you're like God-fearing, try to cover your hair with something if you when you're doing the Amidah. At least that much, But when it comes to making blessings, just take something out of the fridge, right? Make a blessing on a fruit. For a woman, her hair doesn't have to be covered when she makes a blessing like that. Because the custom is now the women don't cover their hair in situations like that. So, that's the way it is. But for the men, it's a different story, right? The men do cover their hair, right, for the Amidah, and they also cover their hair, like pretty much all day, right? They're going around all day, walking around. They do cover their hair. And also the married women, obviously, right? The same thing. The married ladies also do cover their hair. So, depends on the situation, right? Everything has its own thing. But you see from the Shulchan Aruch, right, that the fact that you're wearing pants is not enough. You should also put a belt over it. So that's why, in the Hasidim, the Hasidic world, they have like a special, thing, which they call the gartel, gartel in Yiddish, right? They put that gartel on. So it's really a good thing to do that, but if you have like a belt on top of your pants, you don't need more than that, really. That's enough. You know what I mean? If you got a belt there. But they add also the gartel, it's like a custom by them. Nice custom, Baruch Hashem, nothing wrong with it. Not really an obligation so much, Like you see the Sfardim and the Lithuanians, Ashkenazim, they don't put gartel. You know what I mean? Some of them do. The ones that are more Hasidically oriented. That's the thing, Just give me a second. I'm opening the window here. It's a little bit hot here. Okay, so let's go on. We're gonna go.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yes.
So you said that it's for a woman also, ideally for the belt. But didn't we say one time in a previous lecture, or like a few weeks ago, that since the anatomy of the woman is different, like their erva is more on the bottom, so the heart doesn't really see the.
Yeah. You almost got me there. You almost cornered me there, but I have an answer for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So you know what the answer is? If you look at the Shulchan Aruch here, the language, right? What is he telling you? Even if you're wearing pants, you still should put a belt.
But what was that? The reason is.
Well, what's the reason why? Because of the pasuk, right?
Because of the hikon preparation.
Right, exactly. Hikon, right. So hikon applies also to the women.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's not because of the erva issue. It's because of hikon. So that only applies to the Amidah, as we said, right? Not to the rest of the prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That like that famous Gemara that you mentioned, right? There's a famous Gemara like that. It's also brought down in Shulchan Aruch, by the way, that a woman, who's sitting on the floor, absolutely naked, absolutely naked, she can make a bracha like that because of the reason you mentioned.
Right.
When it comes to Amidah, we don't want to pray naked, right? That we don't want. Not a good idea. Okay. So yeah, as we said, right, your chest should be covered, as we said, right, everything, all that stuff. So the same thing applies to women as well. Okay, very good. So that's the story there. Okay, I got away by the skin of my teeth. You almost got me there. All right, so let's go on a little bit to Gimel, right? We're going to Gimel. So let's see the Bet Yosef here. So it says Bet Yosef, Much Katav Rabbeinu, that which the Torah said, V'chaser Rosho, he also should cover his head, right? Hakol bo Katav b'siman Yud Aleph, right? It says in Kol bo, Katav Aram, she'en asur lelech b'gilui harosh ki ma shamru pek kol kitveh. So he says, right, it's not really forbidden to walk around with an uncovered head. Teteli says, but it's brought down in Shabbat, right? But it's brought because it's brought down in Shabbat. Kuf Yudchet Amud Bet. Teteli the last Sagina Dad Amud Begin the Rosh, right? So this rabbi says, I'm going to get rewarded because I didn't walk around with an uncovered head. So what does that mean? It sounds like a chumrah, like he was stringent on himself. So from there, he says it implies that it's not really an obligation to cover your head all the time. But as we said, right, we don't paskin like that. We paskin that it is an obligation, right? In the Shulchan Aruch, we already passed that a long time ago. We when we started the whole this class, we talked about that over there. So even though the Gra says like this, that it's not really an obligation, it's more like a chumrah. So whatever. I mean, when these guys don't put on a kippah, when they walk around without a kippah. It's like when they get to, judgment up there, they'll have what to rely on. They'll say, yeah, well, I did like the Gra, I wasn't, like this Gemara over here, right? Whatever. So, but the truth is, halakha is not like that. Halakha is that males, right, men should always have something on their head. They can't work for amot, right, without that. As we already mentioned, that's really the halakha. There's also, we brought reasons for that, and we brought all kinds of things. We talk about that. Okay, good. So Ratzel Amar, he wants to say, he says, Shazu midat chasidut. It's chasidut to cover your hair, right? V'hav Rabbeinu Peretz katav sheyesh limchot shelo lichateh bebet hakneset b'gilui harosh, right? But he says, the Rabbeinu Peretz, that we should object. What does that mean? If you see somebody coming into the shul without a kippah, right? Tell him, no, hey, where's your kippah, buddy? What's going on? You know? That's why we have that box right in front of the shul, that little box with those spare kippahs, you know? So we we have something to give him so he can cover his hair, right? He can look like a Jew for once in a lifetime. Okay, so that's the way it is, right? So we tell him to cover his hair in the shul. Rabbeinu Yerucham Katav Besof Netiv Tetvav Tetzayin. I'm sorry, Tetzayin. He writes Rabbeinu Yerucham. She'asu levarech b'gilu rosh. He says you're not allowed to bless without covering your hair as well. Well, Masechet, there is a machloket about this. Masechet Sofim Perek Yudaled Katuv Pochiach Nir'im Kira'av O B'gadav Frumim O Misherosho Megule Pores Et Shema V'yesh Omrim B'chra'av O B'gadav Frumim Pores Aval Lo Berosho Megule Shenom Rashai Leotzi Azkara Mipiv Ad Kan. So you see why there's a machloket here. Some say you can make a blessing without covering your hair. Some say you can't make a blessing like that. Okay. As we said, right, there's a difference between the men and the women. The custom by the women is to be lenient about that. By the men, the custom is to be stringent, you know? That's the way it is. Adkan, especially the single ladies. I'm talking about single ladies, right? Okay. Adkan. Right? It's a machloket whether you're allowed to bless with open hair, right? Or asur. So it says, but since Rabbeinu Yerucham paskind, right, that it's asur, so that's how we paskin, right? So what does that mean? You see that Bet Yosef is stringent about this. And by the way, I must tell you, right, that since we got to this point, the Bet Yosef is all, Maran, Shulchan Aruch, he's also stringent about the ladies as well. So what does that mean? According to Maran, the single girls also should cover their hair. But as we said, right, the custom nowadays is not like that. That's the thing, So it is what it is. Yeah. So this Bet Yosef, right? Currently, the men are like this, and the women are a little bit more lenient about that. But if a woman wants to be stringent, and cover her hair, when she prays the Amidah, especially, and also when she does blessings, it's very praiseworthy. I can't tell you it's an obligation, but what can I tell you? It is what it is. Okay. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch. Says Shulchan Aruch, Yesh omrim she'asur leotzi azkara b'piv rosh megule. Some say it's not allowed, right, to make a blessing with your head open, right, not covered. Yesh omrim sheyesh limchot shelo yiknes bet hakneset b'gilui rosh. And some say also that if you see somebody walking into a shul without a kippah, tell them, right, come on, you're inside the shul, buddy. Put on a kippah, we'll give you one. Go to the box. It's over there, right there. It's right in the box. Okay, very good. So he says, right, some say, right, again, right, some say it's more like, it's sort of a stringency a little bit, but that's the custom today. I mean, who do you see coming into a shul today without a kippah, right? And who do you see, somebody making blessings without a kippah? A man, right? Nobody does that, obviously.
Rabbi, is there a rule in the Shulchan Aruch that if there's two yesh shomrim, we go by the second one?
Okay, so are you trying to say this works over here as well?
I'm asking because literally I was in the shul and the rabbi was saying at the very time and he brought this rule. So does it apply here?
But here it doesn't apply. You know why? Can you guess why it doesn't apply?
It says some say.
Okay, I'll give you 10 seconds. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
It says some say, which is just giving you the minority opinion, right?
Well, it says some say, no?
Some say. Okay, that's good. All right, so let me tell you guys a little bit here, right? What the bottom line is, right? The bottom line that let's go right according to the rules of the Shulchan Aruch. Right? Also in other books, by the way, this applies as well. So if he says, right, some say and some say twice, the halacha is like the second one. Right? That's the rule. If he says stam in Yeshomrim, right, stam, the halacha is like the stam. In other words, the first one, which is not Yeshomrim, he just brings it stam, regular. So there, the halacha is like the first opinion. But here, it doesn't apply. Why doesn't it apply? The reason is because these two halachot don't contradict each other. There's no machloket here. You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
So it doesn't apply over here. There's no... These are two Yeshomrims, which are different halachot. You know what I mean? So it's not relevant to this rule over here.
Got it.
So therefore, right, the rule is that you should try to be machmir like both of them, because they're two separate halachot. You know what I mean? But whatever. What can I tell you? You know, this is the custom. We're machmir about that. We're stringent about it. You know, the ladies will give them a break. You know, we'll give them a break, according to the custom. Okay, God bless. Let's go to the next one. Let's go back to Bet Yosef. So it says over here, Katuba Tumat Hadeshin, right? It's brought down Tumat Hadeshin. Tumat Hadeshin was like 600 years ago, one of the last Rishonim, the final generation of the Rishonim, the early authorities. And so it says, Shekova'im akluim mikash. So it says, what about if you have a hat which is made out of like felt, right? I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. This is not felt. This is straw, right? Straw hats. Hats that are made out of straw, right? Hashive kisui lerosh. It's considered to be your head is covered, right? So you see what the chidush is over here? What's the novel idea here? That even though the straw hat has holes inside, you know what I mean? It's not totally closed, but nevertheless it's considered to be a hair covering, you know, head covering. You know what I mean? That's the chidush. So then he goes on, right? The rosh, you can pray with that amidah. You can do amidah with that. Aval hanachat hayad al rosh. But if you just want to put your head on your right, your hand on your head, that's not going to help you, right? Lachashit kisui. That's not considered to be a head covering, right? By the way, I saw in one book, he says over there, he makes a chiluk differentiation. He says, you know, when it comes to covering your head with your hand, you can use that to like walk for amot, you know, like to walk, that you shouldn't have your head uncovered. But to make blessings, he says you can't do it that way. So it makes a differentiation like that. Let's see what he says over here, right? We'll see if it comes out with the same idea. The katav the tama mishum de'arosh ve'ayad and gufach inun, right? So he says chad guf inun. Why is it that when you cover your head with your hand, it doesn't help you? Because it's the same body, right? It's the same piece of body there. So you're covering your body with your body. You know what I mean? What is that going to do for you? It's going to help you.
So could two men cover each other's head?
That's a good one. I like that. The truth is, I never saw any poskim that talk about that. But from, you know, my gut feeling is that it doesn't really help you much to do it that way. But I could be wrong. You never know. You know what? Prove me wrong. Bring me a source. Maybe you'll prove me wrong. You'll bring me something. I don't know. Whatever, right? Anyway, right? That's my gut feeling. But there's what to say, you know? There's what to say either way on both sides. Okay, anyway, right? So, good. Let's go on. So he says, look what he says, right? The body can't cover itself. He says. We talked about this before. We had this before a little bit. So it's according to his words, mashma, shame. Oh, here you go, right? This is your question right here. Right, there you go. You read his mind. You've read the mind of Bet Yosef, right? So it says implies she'im acher maniach yado shel zeh chashiv shapir kisui. So if somebody else puts it, he says it may be good according to this, right? That's the way it's implied. So there you go, right? So that may help you. But the question is, it may help you with what, right? Will it help you with blessings or with Amidah or just walking around? Okay, we'll see how that works. Let's see what they say in the Shulchan Aruch. Maybe also we'll look in the Mishnah Berurah there, see what they say about that. Very interesting. Okay, very good. So let's go to Shulchan Aruch. It says in Shulchan Aruch. So it says Kova'im Kluim Mikash, right? So he says if you have hats that are made out of straw, Chashiva Kisui, right? It's considered to be covering, even though, as we said, it has holes, right? Aval Hanachat Yad al Rosh Lo Chashiva Kisui, right? But it says that putting your hand is not considered to be, right? As we said, Ve'im so it implies that if somebody else puts it, right, it is. So there you go, right? That's the way he paskins here. Okay, very good. So let's see the Mishnah Berurah here. I'm just interested to see what he has to bring here. So he brings here the Mishnah Berurah, another bombshell, right? Another brainstorm. He says that if you put your sleeve from your clothing, right, that should help you. You got it? Because that's not from your body. So put your sleeve on, right? That you can do. Nice solution, right? So either you find, some guy who will walk around with you and cover your head, right? Or you put on your sleeve. One or the other. Okay, very good. He brings that from the Bach, right? That solution sounds good to me. I'm all in. I'm all for it. Okay, very good, very nice. So there you go, right? So we're done with that. Let's go to, where are we going? Hey, right. Let's go to Hey, Bet Yosef. So it says Bet Yosef over here. Katav Rambam. Says the Rambam, Lo ya'amod b'tfilah be'afundato. So he says, right, as we mentioned already, that you shouldn't pray when you're wearing your money belt, right? So in the old days, they had money belts that they used to put their cash in there, coins, right, whatever, right? And they would just walk around like that. So he says, it's not respectable to pray like that. So it brings from the laws of tefillah in the Rambam. So he says, it seems like if the way of the people over there is to stand barefoot, right, before the kings, right? Kemo be'eretz Arab, like the Arab countries, right? As we said, then you're allowed to pray barefoot, right? So you see, right? This is what we just mentioned. That if you live in a country like an Eastern country, where they pray barefoot, so then it's no problem, right? That's the way they go to the president. They don't wear their shoes when they go to the president, right? The king, whatever it is, right? Now he brings another opinion here, right? He says you're not allowed to pray without shoes. Why? Because he was saying Chagiga, it's not proper manners to expose your foot in front of your maker, right? By the way, that's a little bit hard to swallow. This psak. Why? Because it says in the Gemara that in the temple, right, they all were barefoot there. That's how they prayed there. So how can you tell me you're not allowed to pray without shoes? Right? That's a little bit hard to swallow. So that's why I would say this Gemara is probably talking about the legs more, not the shoes, not the feet so much. Okay, whatever. So it's not proper manners, to pray with your legs exposed. That's what it means. But your feet, that's the way they prayed in the temple. Well, how can you tell me that it's not allowed? The temple was much more holy than our synagogues, right? So you learn from there. I'm sorry. Yeah, what were you saying?
Could this mean that people who pray on the diaspora, maybe?
Yeah, but he seems to say, he doesn't say that. He says it's just forbidden. That's all, period.
Okay. He doesn't
qualify like that.
Okay.
That's very interesting. So let's see as we go on, right? We'll see better. He didn't differentiate between one place and another. But he says it's possible that a place where the custom is to go barefoot, as we said, right? It's not included in this. Possible, right? So there you go, right? That affirms what you're saying pretty much, more or less, right? What you just said. Because we see, right, that people do, in those Arab countries, they go barefoot like that. When they go, into their mosque, right, they pray barefoot. You know that, right? That's how it is. And then when they go in front of the king, right, they go barefoot there. They don't go with shoes. By the way, today, things may have changed a little bit, even in the Arab countries regarding this. I'm not talking about prayers, but I'm talking about going to the president, going to the king. That may have changed a little bit. I'm not really sure about that. Because today, in the Arab countries, a lot of Western culture has already come in there.
So
Seeped in, little by little.
would it be fair to say that it's whatever state represents, honor?
Wherever you live, that's the custom there. That's how the country that you live in. So it goes by that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, so there you go. Right. So velo aminan behu de batla datan. So we don't say, right, that they're nullified in the minority, right? These people. Why? Because in their country, that's the way they do it, So it's not a minority in their country. In their country, it's a majority. So there's no reason to say, minority, majority, this business doesn't apply there. He says, that's the custom, he says. So look what he says, right? The custom is, by the Arabs, they do pray like that, they pray barefoot. That's the way it is. Right? So therefore, if you live in, those Arab countries, hopefully you got out of there already. Most of us already gotten out of there. Baruch Hashem. But if you live there, still in those countries, you can definitely pray barefoot there. There's no problem with that. That's for sure. Okay, very good. That's the idea. So that's the end of the Bet Yosef. Let's see Shulchan Aruch here. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Lo yamod be'afundato, right? You shouldn't stand with your money belt, right? As we said. Velo berosh megule. By the way, it says the same thing in the Talmud about going to the temple, right? You weren't allowed to go into the temple with your money belt there. It was considered to be disrespectful. I guess because it's too materialistic, too much gashmias there, not spiritual, whatever. I don't know what it is, right? And also, as we said, right, the lo berosh megule, also without covering your hair, right, covering your head. The lo beraglai begulim, also, right, not proper, as we said, to also be barefoot. So it says, if in that country where you live, right, they stand over there with shoes, in front of, when you go to the White House, right, they're not going to let you in barefoot over there. They're going to tell you, excuse me, miss, sir, you have to come in with shoes. Go to the shoe store, buy some shoes, and then come back. What I mean? They're not going to let you into the White House without shoes. So that's the way it is, We live in the White House. We live in America. So that's the rule for us, right? That's the way it is. Same thing, by the way, in Israel, even though Israel used to be, in the old days, like an Eastern country, with Arab culture, in the good old days, in the bad old days, Nowadays, it's very Western there, pretty much. So, it's like America in that sense. Not really much different. When it comes to clothing, I'm talking about, right? When it comes to customs, by the way, in Eretz Israel, it's very Sephardi there. When I'm talking in general, customs and also culture, culture in Eretz Israel is very Sephardi. Like you feel, if you were Sephardi, you feel at home there. But when it comes to dress, we're not wearing, those Middle Eastern clothing anymore. The cloak, and the robe and the turban, all that stuff, right? It's disappeared already. It's already gone. That's the way it is. Okay, very good. So let's go to Vav. Bet Yosef. So it says Bet Yosef. Katab od Rambam. Rambam says also, Perek HaNizkar, right? Derech kol ha'chachamim v'talmidehem shelo yitpalelu ela keshem atufim. Oh. So the Rambam brings an extra story over here, right? Which is that what? That, the rabbis and their students, right? In other words, in the yeshiva world, right? If you're yeshivish, quote unquote, right? Over there, what you do is you don't just pray with a kippah, right? That's not enough. You also like wrap yourself, In other words, you got two coverings going on there, right? Atufim, you know what it means? It's like a turban, it puts on a turban there, right? So nowadays, we don't have the turban, right? As we said, it's more like Western culture. So we have, that the cylinder, right? Your hat, right? Your, what do they call that, right? Your Hamburg hat, right? Whatever, right? So you got to put that on. So the B'nai Torah, that's the way it is. If you go to the yeshiva, right? Any yeshiva, which, a normal, nice yeshiva, everybody's, when they do Amidah, everybody's wearing a hat, almost everybody. Except the outsiders a little bit, the outsiders, but the people who are learning there, they all have hats on. Why is that? Because, this Rambam pretty much, that's what he's saying, right? That it's not enough just to cover your hair. A Ben Torah, somebody who's a Torah scholar or a Torah disciple should have a hat. So, once you get enrolled into the yeshiva or the kollel, make sure you got your hat with you, right? Otherwise, you're going to look a little strange there. Okay, very good. So nobody puts on a turban today, right? As we said, that's already pretty much gone from the world. They say, this was like, I'm talking about 100 years ago, right? The Ben Ish Chai, who lived in Iraq, Baghdad, he used to wear a turban, so they asked him, the Ben Ish Chai, the people there, he said, why do you wear this, old-fashioned clothing, like where, you should switch to the Western clothing now, like that's the new fad. They asked him, because in Iraq also, the Western clothing started to come in there. They started to, if you look at the that terrible president that they had, that killer, that murderer, right? I don't want to mention his name, right? Shem V'Shem Yakav. He used to wear modern suits and everything, a lot of times. So, in Iraq already, it's become like somewhat modern, as we said, right? In the Arab countries, the modern culture is coming in there, little by little. But the thing is, that the Ben Ish Chai, they asked him, so why don't you, put on a suit, a vest, three-piece suit and, cylinder, Hamburg, like the Ashkenazi rabbis. Why don't you dress like that? So you know what he answered them? He says, this is the way our forefathers dressed. He says, until Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He says, our forefathers. That's the way they dress. That's the way we dress. He says, we haven't changed our dress from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We still dress the same way. So what do you want from me? What, you want to become modern now, right? That was his answer. Okay, we're not holding there, right? We're a little bit below that right now. We're not holding that in place. What can we do, right? Also, if you look at the pictures of Maran Bet Yosef, right, who wrote the Shulchan Aruch and the Bet Yosef, and also the Kesef Mishnah and the Rambam, the greatest books in Halakha, right? If you look at his pictures, there's always a turban on his head. So he was also wearing a turban. That's the way it was, even though he was born in Spain, right? He was a Spaniard, he was a Spanish man, but then because of the Inquisition, he went there as Israel, and he became a turban guy. That's the way it was. Okay, very good. So let's see that's the end of the chapter. Okay, so we'll go to Shulchan Aruch, and we're done with this chapter. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, Derech HaChachamim v'Talmidehem. So he says the way of the rabbis and their students, right? Shelo yitpalelu ela kashem atufim. Right? They always pray with a hat, as we said, right? Something extra to cover your head there. Atufim really means like a turban, but same thing. It's in our culture, that's what we have. It says the Rama, Ubed Zam, yesh lechabek hayadayim b'shat hatfilah, ki avda kameh mareh. Wow. So look what the Rama says, right? He brings this from the Talmud, by the way, brought from the Torah and from the Talmud as well. He says, right, that when there's like a time of divine wrath in the world, things are not going so well, right? Like, you see, look at the news in Eretz Israel, right? There's every other day, there's some kind of a terrorist attack over there. We're living in a time of divine wrath. That's what it is. I mean, see what's going on, And we're not living in a good time right now. This generation is not a time of divine grace. Let's put it this way, right? So, therefore, says the Rama, when you're living in a time of divine wrath, what you should do is, like couple your hands, like around your chests. So that's like a form of humility, In other words, you're saying, look, yeah, I guess we're not worthy to have divine grace, so we're humbling ourselves when we pray. But he says, in time of peace, right, peaceful times, when there's good things going on, right, good decrees, divine grace. So there, you should put on, nice clothing, good, respectable, good-looking clothing, right? Look like a big man, right? Some important person, right? Something like that, right? So depends on the situation, right? This he brings from the Torah. We saw this in the Torah, and it's from the Gemara. The truth is, the source is in the Gemara. The truth is that nowadays we're not really accustomed to do this. I'll tell you honestly, to do this kind of thing. We do the same thing all the time, whether it's divine wrath or divine grace. We're praying the same way. It doesn't really matter so much for us. But the custom nowadays is that at least the Bnei Torah, the people who are learning yeshiva, the Torah scholars, their disciples, what they do is they dress in a respectable way. Slacks, dress shirts, right, jacket, a suit jacket, and a hat, right? So we distinguish ourselves somewhat, the Torah people, right? The Bnei Torah. That's what it is today, But if a person, it's a regular guy, he's not such a Ben Torah, he doesn't study Torah, all day, whatever. So he dresses like everybody else, he puts a kippah on, and right, he has his, shirt, some kind of, thing, whatever. That's fine, whatever. Wearing pants, normal. He doesn't have to really wear a jacket, whatever. That's the way it is. So to each his own, right? To whatever. But it's good to be respectable when you pray. Okay, very good. That's the idea. Beautiful. So we have a little bit more time. We can go to the next chapter. Tzadik Bet. Why not? Why waste time? Let's go for it. Okay. This was a small chapter. Tzadik Bet. So it says like this, right? In the tour, right? How should a person have his body, right, when he's praying? Tanya, right? So this is a very important thing. This chapter, by the way, is really crucial. If you really want to pray properly. So what does that mean? That if a person needs to go to the bathroom, right? You shouldn't pray like that. Even if you're in a hurry, whatever. Don't play games with this kind of thing. If you need to go to the bathroom, first use the bathroom. and then start your prayers, right? So Mishum Shenemar Hikon Likat Elocha. He brings the same pasuk, right? Same verse for this as well. You got to prepare, So that means your body should be clean. Very important thing. By the way, according to Kabbalah, this is a very big thing, that they say, brought down in the Kabbalistic books, Kaf HaChaim and all kinds of books, that what happens is that when you have in your body, right, excrement, things that are supposed to come out, waste products, and you don't take it out, and you pray like that, the klipot, the impure forces are inside your body, so you can't really connect good with God like that, with Hashem, so you got to first make sure you remove all the impure forces. How do you do that? By using the bathroom. It's very simple, right? Right? It also says, another verse, watch your right feet when you go to the house of God. Rabbi Chanina, Bar Papa, Shemor nekevecha b'shat she'ata omed b'tfilah. Right? So they learn this pasuk, this verse, to mean that you got to watch your body, right? What does that mean? Make sure you use the bathroom. Lifnei b'tfilah lifnei ve'im yitpalel tfilato to'eva. So it says, right, that if a person prayed like that, that he has to use a bathroom. We're going to talk about this, by the way, in depth, more. This is just the beginning of it, right? So don't take everything now literally, right? With a grain of salt a little bit. So it says, right, that if he prayed like that, his prayer is not accepted. It's an abomination. You know what I mean? If he prayed, he has to use the bathroom. His prayer was not accepted. Abomination. So therefore, he has to pray again. That's what it says in the Gemara. So that only applies when he can't, hold it in for like 72 minutes. But it says if he can hold it in for 72 minutes, then his prayer is accepted. B'diavad, not lechatchila. Lechatchila, he should have used the bathroom. But b'diavad, after the fact, the prayer is accepted. Right? Aval lechatchila lo yitpalel ad she'yibdok atzmo techila. But he says lechatchila, a person shouldn't pray until he checks himself. What does that mean? Use the bathroom, right? Make sure you're all clean there, right? If you feel something, whatever, or just make sure you get it out. Another thing he mentions also, you should remove also, if you have any mucus, right, or phlegm, in your throat, in your, in your sinuses, right? Get all that garbage out of your body before you pray. You know what I mean? It's not clean. You shouldn't pray like that. So make sure you're all clean, above and below, right? In your stomach and also in your sinuses and your throat. Everything is nice and clean. The whole davar tordo, right? Also anything which bothers him, whatever it may be, right? Something that distracts him on his body, whatever, right? You should try to remove it. So it says once he checks himself well, then he should wash his hands, right? Before praying, by the way, a person should wash his hands. This is like an obligation, So before you do the Amidah, a person is really obligated to wash his hands. You don't need a cup, by the way, for that. You could just go straight from the sink, You don't need a cup. We're not talking about here in the morning, when you wake up. So, it's not necessary to have a cup, but you should wash your hands. So it says, right, right, if he has water, he should use it. Right? If he doesn't have water, right, he has to go after it, right, and find it. Behind him, right, behind him. Okay, so that's already enough for the tour. Let's see the Bet Yosef here. We're almost done. Another few minutes. Let's see Bet Yosef. So it says Bet Yosef regarding this tour. Right? How should your body be? So he brings all this stuff. Memra de Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani. So it says it comes from this Gemara. Where is this in Brachot Chav Gimel Amud Aleph? Besot Perek Mishem Meto, right? Over there in this Perek. At the end of the Perek. Okay, very good. So the calls comes from there. So now we can at least see the Shulchan Aruch as well. Aleph and Bet, and we can stop there, I guess. Once we do Aleph and Bet and Shulchan Aruch, we're done. Okay, so. It says here, Shulchan Aruch, Hayat Tzarich Lenekeva, right? If he needs to go to the bathroom, you shouldn't pray like that. You know, so if he did pray, as we said, right, his prayer is an abomination, Shem Yirachem, right? Not accepted, right? That means, by the way, he has to pray again because the prayer was not accepted. That's only when he can't hold it in, right, for 72 minutes. Right, but if he can hold it in for 72 minutes, b'diavad, he fulfills obligation. But lechatchila, he shouldn't pray like that, right? That's what we said. He shouldn't pray until he checks himself well. By the way, in those days, what they did was, they were like fanatical about this. What they would do is go into the bathroom, and like check themselves, physically, right? There's something in there that has to come out. Today, we're not so crazy like that, but, at least, right, if you feel something, you should go in and, but the truth is, if you have to know your body, if you know your body, sometimes you can't detect it without checking. So go and check, whatever. But if your body has good senses, and you can pretty much feel what's going on there, so then, you do the best you can, right? You got to feel it out. So, okay. So that's the story, right? It says the Rama, look what it says, Rama, right? As well. That if you need to go to the bathroom, you're not allowed to learn Torah either. You have to be careful about that. So, make sure if you're, learning Torah, first, go to the bathroom and then learn. Why learn? When you have to, when you have to use a bathroom, that's not proper to do that. Right? Right? Because he's got to use the bathroom. As we said, right? The problem is that these things, according to Kabbalah, right? They're like, this is the impurity, So what happens is that when you learn Torah or you pray, when you need to use the bathroom, what happens is, according to Kabbalah, the holiness of your prayers and your learning goes to the Satan, goes to Sitra Achra, goes to the other side, doesn't go to the good side. So you don't want to do that, right? That's not good. That's something you want to do. That's the reason why. Okay, we have one more Shulchan Aruch here. So it says here, right? But what about, right? Yeah, okay. I think we have to wait for this one because we didn't do the tour yet. So we'll do it next time, Bezrat Hashem. Chazak Baruch, be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. Thanks for coming. See you tomorrow, and be holy and happy. And have a great night, Bezrat Hashem.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
God bless. All the blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Baruch Tiyeh.